folks, welcome back to Keith's Garage. It's finally March and spring is right around the corner here. It's already warming up, the snow's melting. It's time to get ready to put my car back on the road. It's been sitting since October, I guess. That's when I last drove it. And it's my 1938 Chrysler. This might be the year of the Chrysler. We'll see. I'll probably focus on driving this car this year, maybe get some real miles on it. Last year, really had a lot of fun with 38 Plymouth because I just rebuilt the engine, so I drove it a lot more. First world problems. We gotta get into something here that I see. I'll show you what it is. Stick around. So after a car's been sitting for multiple months not being used, it's winter here and snow's on the ground. I'm not driving my Chrysler in the winter in Canada. Cars start to deteriorate. They do. The longer they sit, the worse they become. These cars are meant to be driven, and you should enjoy them as much as you can. The more they sit around, they start to go backwards and start to become part of nature. From the raw elements that they came from, nature's going to take it back. So things happen when the cars sit. So let's look at something that I found here. So my car has been sitting since last fall, October. It's now March. And you see what I see there? Many of you know exactly what's going on there. See a little bit of moisture coming down here. It's dripping off of here. That's the back of my brake backing plate. That's brake fluid because my wheel cylinder's slightly leaking. And that's going to happen when the vehicle sits for a long period of time and brake fluid starts to drip out of the wheel cylinder. So it's time for me to deal with this. I know I could probably just pressurize it and it would seal again and be fine, but I want to get in there and have a look. It's dripping out a little bit on the floor. Most of you guys know exactly what I'm going to do here, but for the new folks or maybe folks who've not done it very often, let's go through it. Let's get this sorted out, get cleaned up. I don't like the color of that brake fluid either. It's time. It's got to go. Santa was good to me this year. Got a new wireless impact. My other one died. There's not much torque on this, not like a couple pounds. You don't need to use an impact on it. All right, here's what's going on. See a drip right there? Drip of brake fluid. Another one right here. Dripping down on the spring. Rolling down the sides, down to here. And dripping out the bottom. This is all wet here. So we're gonna take that out and give it a cleanup. Check the cylinder. Oh boy, she's tough. She's stubborn. There we go. Brake fluid in there. Doesn't look that bad, actually. I've seen worse. Much worse. This is fairly clean. So I'm just going to clean that up. Well, I guess I should have put a bucket under there, because now my oil brake fluid is all over the floor. I'm just going to clean this up with emery cloth, check my seal surfaces, and my calipers there. A little bit of rust in there, it's typical, and I'm going to put it back together again. All right, let's back up for a second again here. I want to point out that this is a dust seal. That's all this really is. It keeps the dust out. That fits right over the shoe mount there, like that. And this is the piston inside. And it comes in, when you push on the brake pedal, it pushes brake fluid out, and this piston moves forward and pushes on the shoe. So if it's leaking, it's not leaking because of the dust seal. Inside of there, here's the piston. Behind the piston is the seal. It sits like that. Where the brake fluid is leaking from is past this piston seal here. And it seeps out the bottom and then drips down. Now, what I see here is pretty good. I was in here a couple of years ago. It's just been sitting, so it starts to drip out. It can happen when they're under pressure, constant pressure. They won't leak, especially if they're used on a regular basis. In the summer, when I drive this car all year, they don't leak at all. So I'm just going to give this a quick clean with some Scotch-Brite or some, actually I'm going to use emery cloth. Clean that, polish it up again, and I'm putting it back together. Some emery cloth. These are really bad. I have taken them out before, take the wheel cylinder off and get it on the bench. And then polish it up on the bench. And I reuse them with success. If they're scored inside there and you're gouging, pitting from rust, you're not going to reuse these. You're not going to clean them up. They're not going to seal. This one's in decent shape. What some people do is I'll send them out and have them a sleeve put in there, brass or stainless steel sleeve, so they don't rust in the future. The ones they're making today are just not quite as high quality as they used to be, and they still rust, so clean them up like this. If you can, it's not a bad thing. I'll do the back side as well. Careful not to get any brake fluid on your shoes. If you do, get it off. Get the brake clean out. Get it off there as soon as you can. If the shoes are contaminated with brake fluid for a long time, they're not going to work well. They're going to grab and pull hard on one side. They get hot and they get sticky. The shoes don't work well. So I'm just cleaning out any residue here from my polishing with emery cloth. These seals are not old. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I did this one a couple of years ago. Made in the USA. I like that. Based on what I see here now, had I just driven the car, pumped up the brakes a couple times, cleaned up any leaks with, the car would have probably driven just fine. But there's a potential for contamination on the brake pads. So get in there and clean them up at a minimum. I probably could open this up, done a cleanup with brake clean, stepped on the pad, brakes a bunch of times, and those probably would have sealed up just fine, especially once I started driving the car on a regular basis. And I got a spring here that's got to go in. One bore is smaller on mine, the back is larger than the front.
Let's see it. That one doesn't fit in there because it's a slightly larger diameter. See it in there. The spring on mine is larger on one end. I'm going to put the larger end towards the larger piston. I got some brake fluid here. I'm going to put a little bit in a container, and I'm going to coat my parts with some brake fluid before I put them together, just to lubricate things. The flat side goes against the wheel piston, the cylinder piston, so it goes in that way. Cap here, put some brake fluid in there. Works pretty good. Make sure it's clean. If your brake fluid has any coloring in it, or it's not clear, don't use it. It means it's probably been sitting with the a lid off the bottle for a few years, or maybe there's a crack in the cap and it's not sealed. It's been absorbing moisture from the air. That's what brake fluid does. It absorbs moisture. So I'm just putting my piston in there, moving it up a bit. I want the line in the piston straight up and down, vertical, to match the end of the shoe there. All right. Now the spring's going to want to come out, but I'm going to have to deal with that. Another larger piston. Okay. It's going to want to come out on both sides. Putting our boots back on. Our dust boots. I'm going to go around, I'm going to look at all 4 brakes. I want to check them out again, make sure I'm safe. Got some highway trips planned this summer. And I live in a very mountainous area with lots of hills. Just twisting this so that the vertical cut in the dust boot is lined up with the end of the shoe. And the next thing we need to do is reassemble our hardware. And we're done. We're going to bleed all these brakes. This can be fun. Get on your strong arm. Get a good bite on that spring. Safety glasses would be a good idea. I'll go get mine right now. They make tools for this. There you go. Not bad. I put one spring retainer in place to help me keep everything together. Made it easy. Pin in. Just one on the back side of the spring. Helps hold the spring in place. Put that in your spring. And your other end. It's cupped. Put the dish portion towards the spring. Both ends. Keep one finger on the back side there. Put that on, spin it. Just like that. So my shoes are now reassembled. I have no brake fluid in my cylinder yet. I'm going to take my tool here. I'm going to make my shoes centric to the drum. Some of you may have been lucky enough to buy one of these from me when I used to make them. Just a simple bolt that's on there. Now, these shoes were performing very well before. I'm just going to check. I set this, if your drum doesn't want to come off, when you go to take your drum off, you got to set your toe. This is your heel adjustment down here, and this is called your toe adjustment at the top. I have to turn those in so they'll come off. The drum will come off. It's just an adjustable nut here. I set it so it just kisses the edge of the shoe there. Like I said, I know this one was good before. I'm just checking it. Oops, wrong shoe here. I could tighten that up with a wrench if I wanted, but a little bit further from the drum up here than I am at the bottom. And that would, I think, be where most of your braking is done, in this area. So that's probably where shoes may be wearing a little bit more. I'll adjust them slightly. On this side, oh yeah, really good. Really good clearance there. I'm just checking the clearance between the shoe and the tip of my tool here. I want it uniform. I just set it so that it was rubbing just on the brake pad material slightly. I could maybe make a really small adjustment on the toe here on the front when I put it back together. That's it. No concerns there. Check your wheel bearings while you're in here. They ride smooth, no lumps. I put a little bit of grease in there actually. Put some more in. Alright, so I've repacked my bearings with new grease, more grease. I've sprayed brake clean on my pads, they're all clean. I've cleaned out the inside of my drum, it's all clean. I'm looking for gouging, scoring on the inside of my drum surface and my shoes. Everything looks really good. So I put my spindle nut back on, and I've turned it to the point where it's by hand. You know, it's about as tight as I can get it by hand. You don't want to really crank on this nut. What you're doing is you're putting preload on your wheel bearing. You know, this would be too much. Tighten it up. Every one of these slots in the castellated nut here gives you another section of the nut to turn. Put your new snap ring in, or new cotter pin in. That's a little smaller, need a little bit bigger one. And twist the ends over so this cannot come off. Do not over tighten that nut. Better looking a little bit bigger. You want it snug in there, you don't want to move it around on you. Good old hammer, right? That should do it. All right, and we're putting our grease cap back on. Over here. Another hammer. Rubber works good, you don't smash up your cap. Feels good. I'm going to make a minor adjustment by turning my toe adjustment slightly out so the shoe comes out just a tiny bit on the front so I can feel it rubbing. And that's all I'm doing for this shoe. It's ready to go. I gotta bleed the brakes, and I gotta do this 4 times and check every wheel. Inch and 1/16 wrench. Right behind here on the front, big flat nut, and one on this side too. You're turning it down towards the ground. So on the front, I'm tightening it this way. And what I'm doing is I'm just moving that part of the shoe out slightly. I just want to feel some resistance there. Too much, and I can't move it. See, it's stuck. You want just a little bit of resistance there. So when I put the shoe on, It'll drag just a little bit. And my brakes are set. And they're concentric to the drum. And they're close to the drum. I'm gonna get great braking performance out of this brake now. Again, same thing, all 4 wheels. Well, folks, I really sincerely hope you got something useful out of that. And it was a good use of my time. Well, for me, it was really. You know, there's nothing more important than safety in your car, especially on these old cars. You got to be on your brakes, make sure they're working right. And it's not difficult, but there's a fine art to setting the brakes so they work as they did brand new in 1938. And I just did the very best I can there, and I'm very confident in the brakes. And they perform really well, and that brake tool really helps. I'm not hammering these really tight with the impact. I'm gonna tighten it by hand. I use a breaker bar. Thanks for sticking around. This is Keith's Garage. We'll see you on the next one. I'm not going to record doing all 4 wheels, but maybe I'll do a video later when I go to bleed the brakes. I've struggled sometimes bleeding the brakes. It's a lot of fun when you have a helper. I'm being a little facetious there. It's easier when you have a helper. It's usually my wife, and she's very patient. She puts up with me, and she pumps the pedal, gets on her phone, sits in the car for 20 minutes, and while I go around, bleed all 4 brakes. Do that on another video. Thanks. See you on the next one, guys.